Some of you have asked about the water change procedure on the big tank behind me. It's a 300-gallon African cichlid tank. So I thought I'd go ahead, since I'm doing a water change anyway, I figured I'd go ahead and share with you my water change steps on this big tank. I shared them with you before. For those of you who are new to the channel, this will be informative. For those of you who are not and are familiar with the channel, this will be sort of a review. But I use a Gen X water pump. Moves a lot of water. Otherwise, it just takes forever to drop the water level on this tank. And part of my water change is I'll also turn over these rocks. When you turn them over, the algae side points down, just sort of clears up by not having any light or oxygen. So I'll turn the rocks, maybe do a cleanup of the glass, like if I notice anything on the glass, and maybe do a cleanup on the plants. I'm also having to do an adjustment on a new wave maker that I added from my friends over at Hygger. It sends out the water in a sort of a blade, so it's really a strong flow, and it's uprooting or pulling up some of the artificial plants. Of course, I don't have real plants in this tank because these fish would just destroy them. You see the water level dropping very quickly. I run the sump. I keep running the sump pumps until the water level in the sump gets to just above the pump. And it's about just above the level of the pumps. There's two Cichlid 5.0s in here, so you want to keep them wet. So that's about a good water level. If you have a heater in your pump, you got to make sure you don't go below the level of the heater because it'll burn out if it's on. But that right there is an algae scrubber. I've got videos on what that does. But I'll let that sump level drop. This, of course, is one of my simple sumps running primarily with 3 large 4-inch wide and about 12 to 14-inch tall sponges. So I'll unplug those pumps. And then as I refill the tank, when the sump level gets to the indicated amount, which is right at that tape right there that I've marked off, when the water level gets to that point, I'll go ahead and plug the pumps back in when I'm filling up the tank. I might have to replace the sock. If the sock is overflowing, which means it's clogged, it means it's been doing its job as a sort of pre-filter to the sump, then I'll go ahead and put one of these new socks, clean socks, into the sump. Sometimes, very rarely, if I find that there's a spot in here that has accumulated detritus, I might do a little vacuuming, but normally I don't vacuum this tank. The water movement suspends the detritus, and it gets taken up by the filters. There is an FX6 on here. You can see back there, it's trickling. The water level is dropping, and so I just let it run throughout the water change. The water level doesn't go down so low that it'll fill it with air. The only thing you have to watch out on a water change is don't go below the level of the heaters. But my heaters have built-in warning systems and shutoffs if the water level gets too low. But you can see where the water level is now. It's not going to get too low. I'm going to be ending this off real soon. It's getting right down to the top of this wave maker, so I might be adjusting that wave maker a little lower. You can hear it. It's trying to take in a little bit of air now. I'll just shut it off. It's on a timer. It actually runs when the lights are running. To refill the tank, I do use a Python tap to tank system. I temperature match, and I treat the entire volume of the tank with conditioner before I start the filling. The water change with African cichlids, you've got to be alert, because for some reason the water change will trigger some breeding behavior, and they'll start like shimmying and creating pits and claiming territory. And so you just got to be really alert after you do a water change. I've cleaned the glass pretty much using this little magnetic number here. And from my friends over at Regugu, I got sent that a while back. Looks like the fire hap has a pit going back here. He's moved a lot of gravel, and he's sort of claiming this area back here. So after the water change, I'll just go ahead and fill that in. I'll just move substrate from this front section, side section, and fill that pit up, and maybe that'll calm him down. But he's claiming that back corner and chasing fish off. Not uncommon after a water change. It reminds me of an eye biter when when that bottom fin, that anal fin, gets black, real black like that. That means he's fired up, looking for trouble. I use some Vitachem, some cichlid lake salt to add some trace minerals to the aquarium, and I use Safe as my water conditioner. A 1/4 teaspoon, this much is enough for a 300-gallon tank. It's nothing. And but I do need to use 6 teaspoons. 1 teaspoon for every 50 gallons of Vitachem. So go through this pretty quick. And this I just use a big heaping tablespoon, or maybe a tablespoon or two, just to add those trace minerals that really help the fish. He approves. Water level is about to hit the desired level. When it hits that, I'll go ahead and turn the pumps on and then let it keep filling until it gets back up to right below that blue piece of masking tape. The sock looks good, doesn't look like it needs to be replaced. It'll save me a step. Each pump is rated at 1,300 gallons per hour. That's producing a lot of water movement, adding a lot of oxygen. With sumps, what that blue tape means is that if there's a power outage, there's enough room left in the sump to handle the overflow in the aquarium and not overflow the sump tank. So that's why that level is important. It's something you test when you first set up a sump, like what's the proper level I can run my sump at. I did a very light touch up on this group of plants here, which had a little bit of algae growing on it. I flipped the rocks so that they look a little cleaner, and it's algae side down. Just again, a little bit of brown algae. No vacuuming, like I said earlier. Just the movement of the water suspends the detritus and sends it into the filters. The longest wait, of course, is waiting for the tank to fill. Nice thing about a big tank like this is you're not going to necessarily shock the fish unless you're doing maybe a 95% water change, even if there was a pH difference between the tank and the tap, or even a temperature change difference, or even if you were a little off in your water conditioner. With a tank this size, it's a bit forgiving. You can see I kicked up some detritus from shifting the plants around and cleaning them up, and also from turning over the rocks. Plus what you're seeing is a little bit of that Vitachem. Like a few times a year, I'll pull the plants out and give them a wash with a little bit of bleach. I'll let them sit overnight in a 5-gallon bucket with about maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons of bleach. Then I'll give them a good rinse, and then let them sit for about 24 hours in a bucket with a little bit of water conditioner, and I've never had a problem, and they clean up pretty nice. Like I've said before, what I love about these plants is also what I hate about them. They're so detailed and so lush that they're really hard to clean. See that? They're already facing off. There's already a little bit of face off going on. Water changes tend to trigger that. This board helps me keep track of what's going on in the fish room, because yeah, sometimes I can forget. All right, that's my water change procedure. Things have settled down. Things that were floating around the tank have settled down behind me. It's looking pretty good, as you can see. Fish all seem to be calm and relaxed and doing well. The pit was filled up in the back corner of the aquarium, so that's calmed down the fire hap a bit. And so we'll see. I'll keep an eye on that. You always keep an eye on these guys after a water change. But those are my steps, and certainly there are a lot of reasons for water changes that go way beyond just reducing nitrates, which is what a lot of folks seem to think water changes are all about. But you're adding minerals, you're removing hormones, I've heard, and so there's a lot more than just the reduction of nitrates, and that's why I will continue to do water changes, though maybe not as dramatic as I used to. I don't do the 90%, 80% water change. I'm more in the 20 to 30% every other week, and a top off in between, and that keeps my tanks in that 20 to 40 sweet spot. And also another thing to keep in mind is that some of you worry if your nitrates get up there above 40. The research doesn't seem to indicate that we have really that much to worry about, but I would certainly not want it to be above 80 or 100 parts per million. I think I would get a little bit concerned, but some of us worry too much about nitrates. But I do the change for other reasons that go way beyond just the reduction of nitrates. So that's it for me, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to hear more about water changes, here's a water change playlist up here. And here's some of my best tips up there. And if you'd like to subscribe, please consider hitting my mug down there. Thank you, my friends. I'll see you again soon. Hey, Happy New Year. I hope your 2025 is a wonderful year. And that's it for me. Bye-bye.